Hey everyone, welcome to Bible 365. I'm your host, Kathy Carter. I'm bringing you the Bible in 365 days. Before I even get into any of that, I got a lot of chaos going on in my house today. So if you hear dogs fighting and barking and doors opening and closing, it's one of those days. We're dog sitting. Uh, but overall, I just wanted to talk sort of today. Like I'm in these last couple of days before I get into the date and everything. I'm in these last couple of days, and what I want to make note of is, if I haven't already, but I just want to be sure that I make note of, is that because we're in the book of Revelation, and so it's really hard for me to present this in a way that makes sense. And I'm saying this because I was at church today and I'm listening to the message that's being presented. And it's hard for me to kind of understand the message that he's trying to give. And he's giving it from his perspective. And I've used these words before. He's trying to exegete it as best as possible. But it's, of course, there's some eisegesis in there because he's breaking it apart really tiny. And he is giving a lot of like what he thinks it means and then what it means for us. And that's what I'm doing a lot of as well. So I just want to walk away and I just kind of want to say, I'm trying to present this the best that I can, with the greatest amount of understanding that I have, but it is still my understanding, which is the reason that I did this, is so you guys are reading it as well. And so you can exegete. And then there's an eisegesis, like kind of like your own perspective that comes to this also. So when I kind of throw out this revelation, which I know is like a contested text, like people think all kinds of different things in there, and I may or may not be in agreement with some of those things, and some of those things I won't even go too deep into. I just want you to bear with me that this is why I want you to be reading it, so you have an understanding of what it means also. And then when I kind of presented it, and presenting it, you're not lost out in the weeds, like you have no idea what's happening. So that's just the way I'm starting today. And we're just going to go into it now. I'm reading this, I'm doing this Bible reading. It is from oneyearbibleonline.com. It is a chronological Bible reading. And you could go on there and download a free reading plan, click on a link, which will take you to a reading, or you can purchase one of their books. We are in the last 2 days. So my other note is that today is day 365, but it's not the last day because this was a leap year. So we actually have 366 days, but I didn't want to call it Bible 366 because I feel like that was not a good omen. So today is day 365. It is December 30th. And our reading is Revelation 15 through 18. So the book of the Revelation is the revelation of John. And my history, which I don't do at the end anymore, my history is that God created the earth and he created everything else too. Like anything we can see, anything we can't see, anything we can see, smell, taste, touch, hear, all of those things, but then all of those things that we actually can't smell, see, taste, touch, hear, right? Like all of the celestial beings, all of the heavens, all of the underneath the earth he talks about. In today's, I think it's today's, that he talks about Hades and death. And those are things that we don't see, hear, or quite possibly understand, right? Like that's out of our purview of the way that we live here on earth. So he's created all of those things as well. And he's giving us a glimpse of these things and trying to get us to understand what it means. And I think the point of him giving us a glimpse of these things, I'm going off tangent a little bit, but the point of him giving us a glimpse of these things is for us to recognize that there's something different and bigger, and to know that there are other things going on in all of these realms, right? Like it's not just so much of it is about us, but it's not 100% about us. But he's given us this book to help us kind of understand what all of that means. So he created all of this. He's now bringing us back into relationship with him, and he placed Jesus here on the earth. He had Jesus born, die, resurrect, and then live here for 40 days and then be ascended back up in heaven, in order for us to follow him, to recognize that he is the Messiah, the Savior, the bridge between us and the Lord, right? So he is the one that we look to because he's the connector between us and God. He's the one that cleans everything that we have. Once we recognize that he is the one, then we do the things that he said when he was here on earth to do. And those things are obey God, right? Like love God and love other people. So our main goal, our main understanding is to love God. We love God by knowing who he is. And then we love other people based on the things that he has given us, right? Based on the truth that he has given us. And so he told all of his guys, go out and tell all the rest of the world about me. John is one of the people who did that. When he did that, he was put in jail. The jail that he was put in is this little tiny island called Patmos, off of the island of Greece. And when he was there, he was revealed this information from an angel of the Lord. So what we've seen so far has been, he's like, hey, there's some churches here that have grown, and those churches have some good stuff, and those churches have some stuff that they're not doing well. And so they need to repent and turn back to the Lord. And when they do, and they're victorious, their names will be in the book of life. And anyone who's in the book of life is sort of living up in the heavens with the Lord for eternity. And anyone who is not, we're going to see what happens to that. So there are some that have a mark on their foreheads that say, I'm following God. And then he brings these beasts on the earth, and all these people start following the beasts. He's given these beasts the power to allow people to follow them. And those are the ones who turn away from the Lord and they follow something different. So today he gets this prophecy, and it says, I saw in heaven another great and marvelous sign. So yesterday, those angels came out and they were reaping, and the one that was reaping the wheat, right? Was like reaping, and the wheat was going to be with the Lord. And the other one was reaping the grapes, and the grapes were going to be squished in the winepress of God's wrath. And then it says, I saw in heaven another great and marvelous sign, 7 angels with the 7 last plagues. Last, because with them, God's wrath is completed. So once this is done, God's wrath is complete here on this earth. And I saw what looked like a sea of glass glowing with fire standing beside the sea, those who had been victorious over the beast and its image and over the number of its name. And then all of them were collectively worshiping the Lord. So again, we see like constantly all these 24 elders, this throne room, everything is surrounding all the people that already have the marks on their foreheads. They're all with the Lord, and they are worshiping the Lord together and all the good that he has done by overcoming this beast. It says, after this, I looked, and I saw in heaven the temple. That's the tabernacle of the covenant law, and it was open. Out of the temple came the 7 angels with 7 plagues. Then one of the 4 living creatures, those things that with eyes and all of the things, gave to the 7 angels 7 golden bowls filled with the wrath of God. The first angel went, and so this is just what the angels are doing. The first angel went and poured out his bowl in the land, and ugly, festering sores broke out on the people who had the mark of the beast. So anyone that was following this beast, who had gotten marked with him, again, we can go very literal. Is there something literal that they're doing that they're marking themselves with? Or is it something where like they just love him, right? And they're just following him. And the Lord knows, the Lord can see that mark on them that they're following him and not following God. We can go either way. The second angel poured out his bowl on the sea, and every living thing in the sea died. The third angel poured out his bowl on the rivers and the springs, and they became blood. And so things started to die in there as well. He said, and then I heard the angel in charge of the waters say, you are just in these judgments. So there's a recognition that what he is doing is not sinful. It's justified because of the people that are turning away from him and following others, right? So the evil that has been committed on this earth. And I've probably said this from the very beginning, that we always want justice, but we don't want justice to kind of be against us. Like something happens to our car and our neighbor did something. We want full justification. Like I want an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I want to get what's coming to me. But if it went the other way around, we actually want mercy. So if like we hit our neighbor's car, we're like, oh my gosh, I hope they don't ask for the full payment. I don't know if I can really afford it at this time, or I didn't really mean it. It was an accident, or it's not as bad as it looks, right? Whatever it might be. We're begging for mercy while desiring justice for everybody else. God is that perfect being that gives justice. He gives mercy to all of us because he gives us, like all of us who have been broken and who have sinned in his world, he gives us mercy to turn to him. And then those who refuse to turn to him, he gives the justice that is deserved for all of us. Then it goes to the fourth angel. He pours out his bowl on the sun, and the sun was allowed to scorch people with fire. They were seared by the intense heat, and they cursed the name of God, but they refused to repent and glorify him. The fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and its kingdom was plunged into darkness. People gnawed at their tongues like there was agony. It was awful. The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up. And here's where we move on a little bit. So this is the sixth angel, and there's only one more angel. So the sixth angel does this, and this prepares the way for the kings of the east to come out. He said, then I saw these impure spirits. They looked like frogs. They came out of the mouth of the dragon. They're demonic spirits that perform signs. They go out to the kings of the whole world and gather them. So now these 2 armies are gathering. There's an army that's for the Lord, and then there's an army that's for the beast. And these two armies are gathering to obviously fight against each other. They're preparing for war. The seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and then out of the temple came a loud voice from the throne saying, "It is done." And it finishes with an earthquake and then thunder and lightning, right? All the things that we know that God sounds like. The great city split into three parts. It says that God remembered Babylon the Great and gave her the cup filled with wrath. If you guys remember back in the Old Testament, Babylon, and I'm going to finish this. Babylon was the one who took over the nation of Judah. So once the top kingdom was Assyria had already taken the top kingdom, and they were already kind of like either destroyed or redistributed, whatever it might be. Then they took over this nation of Judah and Jerusalem, and so they kind of destroyed God's people, not completely, but for a very long time. And then they were in charge for 70 years. And so he's using them now. Could this be the literal Babylon, like that area? Sure. Could it be a representation of Babylon, like those people that are holding down or going to war against God's people? Sure. I think it could be either one of those things. But they're going to get the fury of God's wrath. From the sky, huge hailstones, each weighing 100 pounds, fell on people, and they cursed God. So once again, this is more and more opportunities that he's giving. And he's saying, look at all the stuff that's coming. And he gives us his book so we can kind of, at least if like really awful stuff comes, we should be able to recognize, like when earthquakes come, which they do, when tsunamis come, which they do, all these, when COVID was here for a few years, which it was, we can recognize that this is not an opportunity to dwell in our own misery and to curse God. Like, how dare you send all these things to us? This is an opportunity to turn towards him and to live in him instead of living away from him. But instead, these people are cursing God because of it, and because it said the plague was so terrible. So one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came to John, and he says, listen, I'm going to show you the punishment. So he takes him out of this like portion of the vision, and he takes him into a different area where the prostitute is being punished. So for me, I'm thinking, because it seems like it shows a literal woman, but the prostitute seems to be a representation of those that turn away from the Lord. So time and time and time again, from beginning to where we are now, which is at the very, very end, these last two days of reading, adultery is turning away from the Lord. So again, this is a physical manifestation on earth. When you are adulterous with your spouse, when you are adulterous with your people, when you are turning away, when you're turning towards idols, this is considered turning away from the Lord. The Lord has you in a covenant, and anytime you turn away from him because you're married to him, you have a covenant with him, a promise that you are meant to keep with him. He doesn't turn from you. He keeps like looking at you, but you turn away from him. And when you turn away from him, you are adulterous. And so this is what he's saying about the prostitute. The prostitute is like, she's trying to get everyone to be adulterous. So she is she's not even married or in covenant. She's trying to turn everyone from the covenant and turn them all towards her. So she's sort of like the head. So maybe she would be considered the Antichrist. I don't know. It doesn't necessarily say that, but this is the prostitute that's being punished because she's turning people away from the Lord, or she is turned away from the Lord, or she's a people group turned away from the Lord. She's a church turned away from the Lord. So he says, I'm going to show you her punishment. It says, then the angel carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. Probably all have meaning. I'm not going into any of those. She was dressed in purple and scarlet. Maybe she's rich. The name written on her forehead was a mystery. Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of God's holy people, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. So she is drunk on their blood, like she's drinking in their blood. She's killing them. She's destroying them as a people. Then the angel said to me, why are you astonished? I'm going to explain to you the mystery of the woman. The beast, which you saw, once was, now is not, yet will come up out of the abyss and go to its destruction. So there was a time where there was a beast, and then it wasn't. And then it came back. This is like those Ezekiel prophecies that he gave. Like there's going to be this war, and then these people are going to come up, and then those people are going to come up. And that's like, this is that same thing. Because trying to understand through this is, I'm sure someone's done it, but it's not me. And then it says, this calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. They are also given 7 kings. 5 had fallen. 1 is the other one, has not yet come. But when he does come, he's going to remain for just a little while. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who haven't received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings and authority to the beast. So the big important thing coming is they're going to wage war against the Lamb. So all of this that is coming up is going to wage war against the Lamb, against the Lamb of God, which is Jesus. It said, but the Lamb's going to triumph over them because he's the Lord of Lords and King of Kings. And with him will be his called, chosen, and faithful followers. So he's not going to be alone. He has his own army. So again, it looks like all these armies are coming. He has his own army, and his army are the called. So those he had called, the chosen, the ones which I believe, again, I always kind of say are the original like Israelite people, like are the 12 tribes, and the faithful followers. So these are the ones that aren't even called. And in the Old Testament, what we saw a lot of is when like big things happened, a whole bunch of people that were not in the nation of Israel, were not the elect, the chosen, they would follow. And so I think they are the faithful followers. Again, I'm splitting these up. Some people might be like, no, it's all the exact same people. But it seems to me like there were actually 3 different people, the called, the chosen, and the faithful followers. So those he kind of goes out and calls to, right? And then those that are his chosen elect people, which are the Israelites, the 12 tribes. And then those that just faithfully followed even before they were called. So maybe before, like in the Old Testament, so before Jesus. And then it says, the beast and the 10 horns you saw are going to hate the prostitute. They're going to bring her to ruin and leave her naked. It said, the woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. So he's calling it Babylon. And again, is it the literal Babylon or is it a euphemism? I don't know. After this, I saw another angel. He had a great authority, and the earth was illuminated by his splendor. And this angel shouts, fallen is Babylon the Great. And then I heard another voice say, come out of her, my people. And again, I keep saying to you guys, he's giving these people another chance. So she has taken them, she has drank their blood, and then he's calling them out to follow him instead. When the kings of the earth who committed adultery with her and shared her luxury see the smoke of her burning, they're going to weep and mourn over her. So once they see her destroyed, instead of following the Lord, they're going to weep over her. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her because no one buys cargoes anymore. So they're like losing some stuff. And so they're upset. And so they're going to weep over her. It says they have all these cargoes of cinnamon and spice and incense and myrrh and frankincense and human beings sold as slaves. So they were getting all of this from her, like this other one that they were worshiping. They were getting all these goods and everything from her, and they were making a huge profit. And so they're sad because they're not making their profit anymore. Every sea captain and all who travel by ship, the sailors and all who earn their living from the sea, they're going to stand far off. When they see the smoke of her burning, they're going to exclaim, was there ever a city great like this? So again, they're still like shouting out to her. Rejoice over her, you heavens. Rejoice, you people, for God has judged her with the judgment she imposed on you. So they're supposed to be happy that she's gone because she deserved the judgment and the punishment. And instead they're sad. Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a large millstone and threw it into the sea and said, and before I go into what he said, again, this is one of those images that they throw out and for us to understand, like it's like a picture image that they throw out for us to understand the meaning of it. So they threw it out and it says, with such violence, the great city of Babylon is going to be thrown down. So just like that, it's going to be extremely violent and Babylon is going to be destroyed, just like throwing a millstone into the sea. Your merchants were the world's important people, but your magic spell and all the nations were led astray. In her was found the blood of prophets and of God's holy people, of all who have been slaughtered on the earth. And guys, that's how we're ending for today. So if you found this to be a blessing, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And keep reading. The last of the days is tomorrow. I'll see you guys then.